In the first video in this playlist, we established that people, and Western society at large, cannot confront left liberalism because the current language and ways of thinking that we have today are their language and their thinking. It is because of this that virtually everybody in society can point to a general sense of decline, of nihilism, irrationality, and religious fervour, without being able to accurately define it. Brave and intelligent people have tried, albeit still in somewhat niche places, owing to the dominance of left liberalism in all of the institutions of the United Kingdom, for example. Some terms used to try and harness this ideology, or group of people behind it, have been left-wing, far left, liberals, urban elite, metropolitan elite, globalists, bourgeoisie kids, cultural Marxists, purveyors of identity politics, and so on. And whilst all of them highlight a part of the whole, none adequately encompass everything about this new ideology that, thus far, has gone unnamed and unacknowledged. The term left liberalism, however, does accurately and entirely compass the ideology that has taken over many Western countries, especially in the Anglo-Saxon world. And it is more than just a clumsy combination of left and liberal. It accurately denotes the origins of this ideology and the union that has created it. It also helps people to get over the apparent contradiction and historical opposition that capital L liberalism and the bourgeoisie and the left have. The term itself, therefore, starts to break the language and understanding monopoly of the left liberals and make people start investigating more. Because although it is good and even morale-boosting to mock left liberals or point to their obvious malice or power, simply having the discussion, as it is often put, is not enough. The street violence enacted by left liberals is evidently wrong and politically motivated to all thinking people, and shouldn't happen. But it is happening, and it is being allowed to happen by the institutions of Western countries. Unless a framework based upon a revision of language and history that accords to the facts occurs, neither the majority of people nor the institutions will be able to oppose and overturn the left liberals. Because the only way that they will be overturned is if the institutions are themselves retaken by a learned and brave populace, and the internal corruption therefore collapses. This might sound like academic minutiae and political theory, the sort of thing that never has a chance of going mainstream. But aside from that being a patronising position, that the engagement of ordinary people in the Brexit debate, for example, disproves, it is also totally wrong. Because all I am talking about is a revision in learning, as has occurred many times before. This is what happened, and this is why. Facts and causation. Let's look at an easy example of how this would look in practice. People are currently taught by formal education and mainstream culture that Europeans, or white people, enslaved black people because they were greedy, capitalist racists who thought that black people were subhuman. And furthermore, that the white people have never erred from this thinking and are today still racists and imperial supremacists without even realising it, and therefore that this history, as it is presented, is why there must be a left liberal takeover of everything. In reality, the reverse is true. After the Spanish, predominantly, landed in the Americas, the spread of new diseases from Europe wiped out a majority of the local populations, who the Spanish and subsequent European bourgeoisie would have used as serfs, much as they used Europeans in Europe. The rulers and burgeoning bourgeoisie, therefore, rapidly needed a new population of serfs to exploit the vast, underutilised resources of the New World. This was a notion exacerbated by the prevailing economic theory of the time, mercantilism. And at this time, the most thriving slave trade, or serf workforce, available to them was the African and Arab slave trade and network of slave markets. And, over time, the predominance of Africans, who were black-skinned, led the bourgeoisie to develop retrospective racial ideas to justify what was, in the first place, an entirely opportunistic and economic need. These racial ideas, therefore, helped the bourgeoisie to cover up their own mercantile motivations of wealth and power, which would eventually allow them to replace the former feudal, the former aristocratic regimes of Europe. And moreover, it allowed the bourgeoisie to find a way that they could effectively market slavery to the average European, who at this time was somewhat averse to slavery, given their own serfdom, and would, in time, be exposed to ideas of small L liberalism. This was especially important given that without the racial ideas, the hypocrisy and political scheming of the bourgeoisie would be obvious, as they used anti-serf rhetoric to justify their ascension to power in Europe, whilst using serfs and slaves in the New World to ascend to power there. Racial ideas, therefore, justified the bourgeoisie use of African slaves as farm animals, whilst covering up their takeover of society. This revision is more than academic. It completely nullifies the left-liberal orthodox that white people are inherently racist, and that there is a need for left-liberal anti-white propaganda, or laws even. Instead, the solution to modern-day problems, which are not racial, actually, changes once you understand that anti-black racial ideas were part of a much larger package of bourgeoisie ideas used to make money and take power from the aristocratic class. And what makes this revision so compelling is that the ancestors of this Renaissance bourgeoisie are the left liberals. They are the Democratic Party in the USA. They are large tech companies now supporting black supremacism. They are the Liberal Democrats in the United Kingdom. This example, therefore, doubles up both as an example of simple yet sharp historical revision, and also of how such revision allows a person to easily understand the present and perceive its actors and their motivations. Because, clearly, the left liberals of today are using racial politics exactly as they did in the past, to further their own wealth and power as the world transitions away from Anglo-Saxon and European centrism. The only difference is that, in order to survive, the capital L liberals, the left bourgeoisie, have adopted left-wing ideas and language in an attempt to secure their future, and hence their current hatred of anything considered white, European, or Western. And, even more grossly perhaps, they are doing this to cover their own tracks, to cover the origins of their own wealth and positions, while scapegoating the common European or American, who suffered equally at the hands of left liberals in serfdom, in workhouses, in wars. The revision above undermines the narrative upon which left liberals base their current racial policies, and it is because it does that there is no possibility of this revision occurring spontaneously or, heaven forbid, out of academic rigour in our schools or universities. Because the facts undermine the ideology of left liberalism and therefore the power and wealth of the left liberals. This revision will only happen if people enter into those institutions armed with the facts and the confidence that they bring to change them from within.